position with Democrats. It's nonsense. They
How?
need to learn to wield power better.
Get rid of the filibuster?
Yes, and President Trump has said that, and I support that.
You know what? I support it too. I think this is a rare moment of compromise because Republicans have been using the filibuster as a tool to prevent any meaningful legislation from getting passed. It is inherently anti-democratic, and so I would absolutely be in favor of nuking the filibuster.
Well, there you go. We can get the SAVE Act passed, right?
There you go.
I think.
So you agree we should pass the SAVE Act?
I do not think we should pass the SAVE Act.
Of course, the institutional argument against that is there's a lot of bad legislation that is sometimes stopped by the filibuster, and it is the one way of stopping government from moving too.
Tyler Cohen went up against one of MAGA's most vocal defenders, and what you're about to watch is a masterclass in staying calm under pressure. The debate covers TSA funding, ICE, immigration enforcement, and the core accusation that Donald Trump deliberately withheld funding from Americans to use their pain as political leverage. Brian does not get flustered, does not get dragged into the chaos, and keeps coming back to the same central argument with the receipts to back it up. So let's get into this, and I'll give you my full thoughts on the other side.
What is going on? Why can't the government come to a deal and get this thing done?
Well, I think it's pretty clear that Donald Trump wants to leverage Americans' pain so that he can try and exploit that so that he can pass a voter suppression bill. I mean, at the end of the day, we know that there were a ton of different options to actually get this thing done, to get TSA funded. The Democrats put forward 9 standalone bills to fund TSA. Donald Trump rejected them. Senator Kennedy, a Republican senator, admitted that Donald Trump rejected it. And so he wanted the pain because for him, that pain is a tool. It is a way for him to avail himself of whatever he can to get what he needs, which is a voter suppression bill, and he would use Americans' pain to get there.
There's a lot for you to unpack there.
Well, I'll just start with a question, which would be, why was it okay for Democrats to fund ICE under Biden and Obama, but now it's a problem under Trump?
That's a great question. It's because ICE can't stop shooting and killing Americans in the streets. They did it to Renee Good. They did it to Alex Preddy. And so Democrats wanted some...
after that.
Well, they stopped. Thank God they stopped after that.
I mean,
but I think 2 is probably enough.
Yeah.
And so Democrats were asking for some very common sense conditions to be met, which include no masks, pretty reasonable.
No masks from the party who wanted to tell everybody for years in this country they had to do nothing but wear masks during COVID, to be clear.
This is law
and
enforcement.
Why are they having to wear masks?
Why are they having to wear masks right now? Because they don't want to be identified for
doxed, because they don't want to be doxed by Democrat lawmakers.
There is no other law enforcement agent.
ICE, they can't carry out their mission.
There is no other law enforcement agent.
These are real people who are worried about going home to their families, and they're doing a job which is to enforce the laws of our country that are on the books.
Well, if they were doing those laws properly, the way any other law enforcement agency has for the last 250 years, they wouldn't need to cover their faces, but they're not. They're killing people on the streets, and we've seen numerous instances of that.
I'm glad you bring up killing people on the streets. So what would you say to the family of Sheridan Gorman, who was killed last week by an illegal immigrant who entered our country in 2023 and had a detainer out and an arrest warrant that wasn't fulfilled? What would you say to her family as to why it's okay to not fund ICE, whose job it would be to make sure that, 1, he was never here, and 2, that we've gotten rid of him? What would you say to her family?
Look, I'm sad for anybody who passes away or who is tragically killed. We have had ICE, and we've had immigration enforcement in this country for years and years and years, and they've managed to do it without slaughtering people in the streets. And so I think that if we don't have an agency,
you're going to tell her family?
If we don't have an agency,
you're going to look in the eyes of her grieving parents.
But Carolyn, which of the demands, the idea of the no masks, the warrant, what is your problem with? Let's start with the masks. I mean, why should police don't wear masks?
Well, the problem is that, again, this is why I asked you originally, why was it okay under Obama, why was it okay under Biden to carry out these deportations with 0 fanfare? And now what has happened is
it not more, but it's not more aggressive in the streets, especially, and maybe it'll change now with Markwayne Mullin and no Chad Bavino, but there was an aggressive, in-your-face push in cities like Los Angeles and Minneapolis that we did not see quite the visible, in-your-face push under the Biden administration. You'll admit that, right?
Why did we have to be so aggressive? And part of it is because when you look at the deaths of Alex Preddy and Renee Good, what makes me so sad is the rhetoric from Democrats turned these people into non-law abiding citizens who weren't protesting. They were obstructing
Are you
ICE
saying that
operations.
Alex Preddy was not a law-abiding citizen?
No, absolutely not.
He was holding his phone.
And he also kicked a federal vehicle in the back, which is damaging federal property.
11 days earlier.
Damaging federal property. That's a felony.
That's not license to
You
kill
asked me
somebody.
if it was criminal behavior.
That's not
That's a
license to
felony.
kill
Somebody should not be killed for that, right?
But of course not.
Yeah.
But he was obstructing law enforcement operations because he and Renee Good existed in this ecosystem that told them this is a virtuous thing to show up and obstruct basic law enforcement operations, where all ICE is doing is enforcing the current laws that are on the books, 3 U.S. Code 1825. If you don't like the laws that are on the books, change them, but that would require winning elections, which Democrats didn't do. You can't now obstruct the enforcement of the laws that are on the books. That's overthrowing democracy. That's undermining the will of the American people.
We've got this weird situation now where ICE actually is funded for a long time because of the big, beautiful bill. But what's not being funded is TSA, right? And the Coast Guard and other parts of Homeland Security.
It's all by design. Again, the Democrats were putting forward these bills. It was Trump himself unilaterally who decided that he didn't want this stuff funded because he wanted to exploit the pain that Americans were feeling at the airports. And so he told them, no, because we're not going to do anything until we can get the Save America Act passed. And if that means that we don't fund TSA, then let's not fund TSA. So can you at least admit that we had a solution here right in front of us, that the Democrats and Republicans both conceded that there was a solution, and that Donald Trump unilaterally wanted to leverage that pain to get what he wanted politically?
Well, let me just on TSA really quick. I'm okay with some of the TSA agents walking off a job because every time I'm at an airport, I usually see like 7 TSA agents standing around and one of them doing the job. So I'm actually okay with that. But on the fact of leveraging pain, let's talk about the pain again of Sheridan Gorman, who just last week in our country, I just want everybody to picture this. She is an 18-year-old woman who is out watching the Northern Lights with her friends, taking selfies, thinking about what she's going to post on social media, and instantly a bullet rings out, hits her head. She's killed instantly by an illegal immigrant who should have never been here in the first place. Again, came in 2023. ICE's whole job is to get people like that out of our country. It is not morally defensible to defend a nation that allows criminals like that to stay in our country.
ICE is funded.
That's not morally.
But ICE is funded.
ICE is not funded. If
ICE is funded through the One Big Beautiful Bill.
Well, it needs to be funded beyond that, which is
but how does that answer
the
example you just gave?
Which is Democrats wanting to circumvent the fact
Donald
that
Trump,
they didn't win an election and they couldn't change the law.
Donald Trump is the president. It's his DHS. It's his ICE. Republicans have full control of government, House, Senate, White House. So why are you giving fear porn examples of the failings of this government when your party is in charge?
Okay, so
but don't you agree that ICE is itself important, and the idea of taking out criminal illegal aliens that have convicted of other crimes is a good thing?
I think the idea of immigration enforcement is important. I think that ICE, as it stands right now, is beyond repair. I think that this agency is fundamentally broken.
Who's supposed to do the job that she's just talked about?
Who's supposed to save Sheridan Gorman?
I think that
it's a good thing that we allowed her killer to stay in our country. It's a good thing that she's dead. You want to talk about exploiting pain?
At a bare
it's a
minimum,
good thing that she's dead.
At a bare minimum,
yes or no?
At a bare minimum,
she would not be dead.
Let's go one at a time.
At a bare minimum, they need these conditions put in place, which include having insignia or being able to identify yourself, not wearing masks, having warrants signed by judges, and no ICE at the polls come November. I think those are all pretty reasonable conditions.
And what about the pain of Sheridan Gorman's family?
Again, I answered that question. It's tragic when anybody gets killed.
And just want to follow up on something you said. I mean, for the TSA agents who are hardworking people who are going without pay now for a month, I mean, how is that okay? Why is that good? I mean, I know you just sort of like laughed at that some of them are standing around, but these are people who have jobs, who are dependent on this money, and they're going to work every day and not getting paid.
Yes, and that's why.
Let's start with the most important factual point in this entire exchange, because it is the one Brian Tyler Cohen kept returning to and the one his opponent kept trying to avoid. Democrats put forward 9 standalone bills to fund TSA. 9. And Donald Trump rejected them. Senator Kennedy, a Republican senator, admitted that Trump rejected them. That is not a Democratic talking point. That is a Republican senator confirming what happened. So when TSA agents went without pay and airports experienced disruptions, that was not a failure of Congress to act. That was one person making a deliberate choice to withhold funding because he wanted the pain to be felt. He wanted it as leverage to force through the Save America Act, which is a voter suppression bill dressed up in patriotic language. The opponent in this debate kept trying to flip the framing by asking why it was acceptable for Democrats to fund ICE under Obama and Biden, but not now. And Brian answered that correctly. The issue is not the concept of immigration enforcement. The issue is specific documented conduct. The deaths of Alex Petty and Renee Good, ICE agents covering their faces and hiding their badges. Operations being carried out in ways that no other law enforcement agency in the country operates. You cannot compare immigration enforcement under previous administrations, which followed established protocols and carried judicial warrants, to what we are seeing now. The differences are not cosmetic. They are substantive. The mask argument from the other side was one of the weakest moments in the exchange, comparing public health guidance during a global pandemic to questions about whether law enforcement officers should be identifiable while conducting operations on American soil is not a serious comparison. These are completely different contexts, serving completely different purposes. Police officers in this country do not cover their faces and hide their agency identifiers when making arrests. That is not a tradition. That is a departure from it. And the reason for that departure matters. Then there is the tragic death of Sheridan Gorman, which the opponent returned to repeatedly as the emotional anchor of her argument. And Brian handled it the right way. He acknowledged the tragedy directly and without deflection. It is tragic when anyone is killed. Nobody disputes that. But here is the thing the opponent does not want to answer. Republicans control the House, the Senate, and the White House. If ICE funding and immigration enforcement are the priority, they claim, why is TSA unfunded? Why are Coast Guard workers going without pay? Why did Trump reject 9 standalone funding bills that would have kept these agencies operational? You cannot use the death of an American to argue for more funding for an agency, while your own party's president is withholding funding from that same department as a political tactic. Brian made the point that cuts through all of it. Democrats and Republicans, your party controls the government. If things are broken, that is on your watch. You do not get to point at the consequences of your own party's governance and blame the opposition when you hold every lever of power. That is not a deflection. That is just math. The filibuster moment was genuinely interesting because both sides agreed on the outcome for completely opposite reasons. Brian was right to support eliminating it as an anti-democratic mechanism that has been used to block meaningful legislation for decades. The difference is that the MAGA side wants to remove it specifically to ram through voter suppression and partisan legislation without any checks. That is not the same argument, even if the destination sounds similar at first. Context and intent matter. But what really stood out across this entire exchange is the consistency argument that Brian kept making, and that kept getting ignored. Accountability has to apply across the board. If covering your face and hiding your badge matters when the protester does it, it matters when law enforcement does it too. If the death of an American at the hands of someone who should not have been here matters, then the death of an American at the hands of law enforcement that was not following proper protocols matters too. If exploiting people's pain is wrong, then withholding funding from TSA workers who are going to work every day and not getting paid, using their financial suffering as a bargaining chip, is exploiting pain. Brian Tyler Cohen stayed composed through all of it. He did not match the emotional escalation. He did not get drawn into the chaos. And at the end of it, the central argument was still standing exactly where he left it. Trump rejected the funding. Trump created the pain. And the people paying for that decision are the American workers who showed up to do their jobs and did not get a paycheck. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the thumbs up, subscribe, and turn on the bell notification. I'll see you in the next one.